Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku couldn't resist her spark part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, TheDreamingDeku from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Izuku was walking the halls alone, without friends to talk to and hang out with. He was used to being that lone kid in his class. It's not that Izuku didn't get along with his classmates, he did that just fine. However, no one really took an interest to learn more about him. This was Izuku's everyday life ever since he could remember. He would get ready for school in the mornings just like everyone else and take notes during classes. Then he would sit alone in the cafeteria and eat his lunch, usually katsudon, returning to work shortly after. Izuku wasn't introverted in any way, but he struggled to be open with people due to the severe bullying in his early ages. Since he was also fairly plain-looking, he didn't really catch the attention of those who were around him. You had to look closely and know him before seeing how determined he was to become the strongest hero out there. To say Izuku didn't get lonely sometimes would be a lie. Somehow though, he manages to keep on charging through no matter what is sent at him. Izuku lived like this for a significant amount of his first year at 𝗧𝗵𝗃 Academy. When the Overhaul mission came up, however, Izuku met his future 3 lifelong best friends. He had met Mirio, Nejire and 𝗵𝗃 previously but not actually had the chance to speak with them. Izuku had a brief talk with Mirio when he was on house arrest for fighting with Kaken but didn't really speak a word. The Overhaul mission completely reshaped Izuku Midoriya's life. He still remained the same kid in his class, but outside of Midoriya felt like the coolest person ever. After the Big Three had finally seen who he was from the determination that persevered during the battle with Overhaul to save Eri, they approached him and talked to Izuku. The Big Three had been talking with him at the hospital, although he was going to get discharged pretty quickly because the doctors had found nothing wrong with him. Eventually this led to them getting to know each other better and becoming friends, best friends at that. They all liked the same things and had a passion for heroes. They shared an interest with each other that was deeper than most, this being the base of their inseparable friendship. Over time Izuku opened up a whole lot to them. They always joked about being the Big Three and Izuku. He never cared about the whole popularity thing, he only wanted to help people. The occasional question was asked about how he became friends with the Big Three by his peers. He always shrugged them off, not wanting to brag about saving a little girl that needed help. In his eyes, that was always more important than anything else. One thing he had always wanted were friends that genuinely cared for him. He had finally found that after many years and was regularly enjoying his life now. Come on Izuku. You can do it. Mirio encouraged. Izuku and his friends, Nejire, 𝗵𝗃 and Mirio, were currently watching him bench press 85 kilograms of weight in the gym. Izuku was dripping sweat from almost every crevice on his body. Pushing up this much weight was a challenge, especially without his quirk. Ah! He screamed as he pushed up the final amount of weight of his chest. Whoa! The Big Three uttered, stunned by the sheer power Izuku possessed at his age. He had trained his body non-stop since the day he heard from All Might that he too could have a quirk and become a hero. The best one even. I knew you were strong, but wow. I never thought you had so much muscle, Nejire awed. He, thanks guys, Izuku chuckled awkwardly at his friends gawking about him. All of them would always meet after school or on weekends and hang out. Whether it was going out for the day or studying together at their dorms. They thoroughly enjoyed each other's company, you could even go as far as saying a little too much. Izuku didn't have much experience in third-year base subjects, but in hero training, he was the kid to go to for the 100% grade. He was always working hard to become a hero, so Izuku passed all of his exams at the highest mark. He could even compete with third-year grades. It was 5 p.m. after school and they were having a competition on who could lift the most. 𝗵𝗃 tapped out first at 70 kilograms with Nejire following shortly after with 75 kilograms, going up by 5 each time. Right now Mirio and Izuku were still going higher, but there was a clear winner here. Alright, time for 90 Izuku. Mirio exclaimed. Izuku was struggling while Mirio was thriving. Nejire and Mirio put the weights on the side and he laid back down onto the board. I have a bad feeling about this one, Izuku told his friends, uncertain if he could complete this or not. Just give it your all, Tamaki said quietly. He was still a little timid around Izuku but still considered him a friend as close as Nejire and Mirio. Mirio was now standing over him just in case he couldn't hold it. Izuku took off his sweatshirt so he could cool down a little and tossed it to the side. The sight of his pecs and 8-pack indented itself into Nejire's memory as she became red in the face. Izuku lowered the bar down little by little and managed to keep it steady. That was the easy part, but now he had to push it back up onto the hold. The look on his face was one of determination, strength, and cringing. Izuku pushed as hard he could, putting every ounce of his being into it. He just barely managed to put the bar on its stand. "That's it, I'm out," Izuku panted, forfeiting. "And that settles it. Great job, Midoriya." Mirio cheered. "Even I couldn't lift that much in my first year," he stated. "Thanks, Mirio," Izuku said with a small smile on his face, rubbing the back of his neck. "We should head back to my room and chill out there," Nejire said in her bubbly attitude. You could say this was hard for Izuku to do because he had a small crush on the periwinkle-haired girl. He had decided to conceal his feelings for the time being in order to preserve their friendship. Izuku didn't want to take any chances when it came to his friends. If you say so, Izuku added, blushing lightly. Luckily no one noticed. They walked out of the gym together discussing how strong Mirio was. His record was untouched at 145 kilograms. No one had come close to that record. Izuku still wasn't completely comfortable talking with girls, so he definitely wasn't used to being in their rooms. They were all friends though, so he shut out any bad thoughts he had and headed towards the 3A dorms with his somewhat recent best friends. They had been best friends for 5 months now, sharing stories with each other and hanging out regularly. Tamaki opened the door for everyone and they walked in. Izuku had been in Nejire's room a couple of times, but he never felt comfortable due to his feelings. The big three noticed he acted differently when he was in Nejire's room but disregarded it as nerves. This was true to some degree but not the actual reason. They had been given looks by the other class members of 3A because of the big three bringing a first year back to their dorm. All of them had learned to ignore it and just keep going. Izuku, however, couldn't help but feel awkward in those situations since he was the outlier. They stepped into the elevator and pushed the button for the 5th floor. After a long silence, the doors opened to the 5th floor. "Alright, we're here." Nejire beamed. "Awesome," Mirio exclaimed. She unlocked her door and walked in with the guys following. Nejire took her usual position on the chair upside down. Tamaki lay down on the bed like you would in therapy. Mirio sat on the couch and Izuku sat next to him. "So, wanna watch a movie?" Nejire questioned. "Didn't we do that last time?" Tamaki replied. "Yeah, but we can watch another one," Nejire said in her ecstatic mood. "Sure, but what kind of movie?" Izuku asked with a smile on his face. What about romance I found?" Nejire said calmly. Secretly, the 4 of them were a bunch of softies and loved that kind of stuff. "Yeah," they replied. Since the TV screen was medium size on a stand that was on the left side of her room, they all had to sit on her bed together. The group sat in the order of Nejire, Izuku, Mirio, and Tamaki. So close. Izuku thought while a slight tint of red appeared on his face. They all sat against the wall pretty much squished together so they could all fit. She started the movie and tossed the remote aside. "Why do I have this fuzzy feeling around Izuku all the time?" she questioned herself. Nejire was unfamiliar when it came to love, so she couldn't pinpoint her feelings towards Izuku. "I always feel comfortable around him, but at the same time I get super nervous. What is this? It couldn't be that I like Izuku," she thought. The movie was about halfway done, but she hadn't been paying any attention to it. She sneaked a look at her green-haired friend every now and then, occasionally making eye contact with him and looking away, blushing in the process. Nejire noticed these feelings from the start of their friendship but decided not to act on them because he was a first year and she was a 3rd year, so he could never feel what she felt right. The movie ended with the 2 main characters kissing during a dance that was held by their school. "Wow, I still can't believe they got together like that," Mirio said, having paid full attention to the movie. "Why yeah," Izuku and Nejire stuttered shyly. "Let me guess, you stopped watching after being a few minutes in," Tamaki teased. They knew she had a short attention span, but Midoriya too. They laughed about it and continued their evening of activities. All of them discussed stuff in their classes for a bit in the positions they were in previously upon entering the room. Eventually a game came up that no one who had a crush could play without lying. What about if we play Truth or Dare? We clearly don't know a whole lot about each other's classroom lives, Mirio shared with his friends. Nejire and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 agreed instantly. Oh, sure, I am okay with that, Izuku stated, internally panicking. Okay then, I'll start, Mirio said with a small smile on his face. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, Truth or Dare? He asked. Truth, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 replied lazily. If you had to eat 5 super sour candies at once, how long do you think you would last? Mirio asked. Easily less than a few seconds, he answered, sure of his reply. All right then, 𝗵𝗃𝗃, it's your turn, Mirio told his friend. Truth or Dare, Nejire? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 often liked to get personal with people as a joke. Truth, she replied. Do you have your eye on anyone special? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 questioned, attempting to make her slip up and spill something. Nejire blushed instantly with a face of shock and looked down. Well, since you guys are my closest friends, I guess I can tell you, she started. I sorta have a thing for someone. They're kind, sweet, and super determined, Nejire said to the dismay of Izuku. Izuku thought his chances were a long shot, but what's the harm in trying? Everything when it came to Nejire. He wasn't thrilled in any way when he heard her say this, but Izuku would still be there to support her no matter how he felt. Is it someone in our class? Mirio asked. Hey, that's 2 questions, no fair, she said with a small pout. So cute, Izuku thought. Izuku, Truth or Dare? Nejire asked him. Dare, Izuku replied confidently. I dare you to share your most embarrassing experience with your class to us, she stated, curious to know more about the boy. Well, I guess it would be the time my class started to ask a bunch of questions of how I became friends with you guys. I think the most embarrassing one though was when they started asking if I was dating someone, Izuku responded, getting increasingly nervous. Nejire blushed at that statement but quickly shook her head of any thoughts she had with Izuku and said back, huh. She chuckled at the thought of him answering that question. Sounds like you have your hands full in that class, Mirio implied. The time came when they all had to return to their dorms due to their 10 o'clock curfew. The day was similar to most where they had just hanged out and did stuff. Izuku went to sleep somewhat late that night waiting for the events of tomorrow to arrive. He sat in class with Mr. Aizawa talking about a hero assignment that was due the next day, but Izuku had already finished it. Currently he was thinking about the events of last night. The words Nejire had said melted into his mind. Midoriya. Aizawa scolded. Sorry, he stuttered. Class continued without any more issues, but he still was thinking about one thing, work studies. Where was he going to go? Gran Torino was busy and Sir Nightai's agency was swarmed with paperwork and he didn't want to bother them. His options were severely limited to those on the list of UA's free internships. Izuku was desperate to not intern at their agencies as they often did it for the money and didn't really teach heroes in training much at all. The bell rang and class was dismissed relatively quickly. Aizawa wasn't fond of having students loiter in his classroom. Izuku was excited every day to meet his friends. It never got tiring no matter how energetic they could get. He headed to the cafeteria and was immediately cramped into a line for his meal. Luckily ahead of most other students today. Sometimes the wait could go up to 8 minutes, which was precious time in such a prestigious academy. Izuku sat down at a table, alone, left to his thoughts for eternity on end. It reminded him of when he had no one to talk to. He felt those were like the dark days for him. He moved on from that quite a while ago but always kept the determination that came from those instances to become a hero. Izuku spotted his friends near the end of the line. Bad luck today. Looked like he was going to be eating lunch alone once more. He looked down at his bowl of katsudon, 3/4 empty and continuing to deplete. He wished his friendships would never become like his bowl of food. On a time limit, only lasting for so long. Hey Midoriya, Mina exclaimed, snapping the boy out of his thoughts. Huh. Oh hey Mina, he waved back. So, what's it like hanging out with the most powerful trio in school? Well, it's honestly pretty nice and they're great fun, Izuku replied. Wow, that's so cool. Mina responded. Mina had asked the question to start a conversation for what she actually had to say to him. By the way, what are you doing? She asked, confusing young Midoriya. What do you mean? Tonight. Mina clarified. I was gonna hang out with the big three, but if it's more important I can cancel with them, he answered. Do that. I think you'll like to see what the girls and I have planned. Be at the common area at 7 p.m., no sooner, no later. Oh, okay, sure, Izuku replied. Also, I want to know something else, she asked, piquing Midoriya's curiosity. Why do you look at Nejire the way you do? Mina said with a little bit of intimidation. Izuku's heart just stopped along with time. He did not want to answer this question in any way, as he knew this would lead to his secret to get out. Or what was left of it, assuming she hadn't already told others. Mina had the qualities of a spy, making it easy for her to get juicy information to spread gossip among friends. What Midoriya said next might determine if he still has friends after this conversation. With his poker face on, hiding his fear, he answered, I don't look at Nei, he said, getting cut off. Hey Izuku. The big three chimed. Is this why your friend? Tamaki asked timidly. Why yes sure I is, he responded, hoping she got his message of, please don't do it. Fortunately for Midoriya today, she wasn't going to share her information, so she took the hint and gave him the I'm watching you gesture. Then she walked off, much to her disappointment. She didn't know why, but she caught Midoriya staring at Nejire a few times. Mina had a hunch, but she didn't know if he was either falling in love with her or already knew Nejire. She was going to find out no matter what. She soon got back to her table and struck a conversation with Kirishima. Was that about? You look worried, Nejire asked out of curiosity. She got a gut-wrenching feeling when other girls talked to him, but what can she do about it? Something about a surprise. You know, nothing important, he said a little too fast, almost as if it were important. You're funny when you stutter, she said, leaving him even more flustered. He looked down at his bowl only to see it empty. Izuku went wide-eyed. He hoped Mina would not be the reason that he wouldn't be able to hang out with his best friends anymore. You guys took a while, I'm already finished, he said, staring at his bowl. Well, that's what we get F for Mirio's clothes falling off. Tamaki shared with Izuku. The group laughed about it and went on with lunch with less time than they usually had to talk. Bring. Oh, and guys, I won't be able to hang out after school because of that surprise, Izuku said, leaving them a little disappointed. No idea why I can't hang out with them before that though, he thought. They went their separate ways for the final PRD of the day. The class was hero training, which was 4v4s in Training Ground Beta. Izuku's entire team, Kirishima, Sato and Siro, were captured really quickly due to a flawed strategy that he didn't get a say in. This left Izuku to a 1v4 fight to win the round. He went all out as expected of Midoriya and used a fairly decent strategy that included him picking them off one by one. This won him the fight, but at the cost of 2 broken legs. He was sent to Recovery Girl's office, where Kirishima put him on a bed and Recovery Girl used her quirk on him. He was out like a light. Izuku woke up a couple of hours later. Ah, good, you're awake. You have no injuries anymore and are welcome to head back to the dorms. But you need to stop hurting yourself, young man, Recovery Girl explained. It was around 5 p.m. and he was still pretty tired from hero training today. Izuku traveled through the hallways of making it out to the field. Slowly but surely he returned to the 1A dorms. Izuku stopped and opened the door to the dorms to be greeted by everyone carrying tables. He wore a confused face but was too tired to ask questions, so he shrugged it off and went to his room. Izuku opened the door, immediately closing it behind him, and headed straight for the shower. He cleaned himself up, then put a pair of shorts on. Shortly after, Izuku set an alarm for 7 p.m. on his phone. He flopped onto his bed and went to sleep without a care in the world. Izuku woke up to his painfully annoying alarm. He picked up his phone and held the urge to throw it. Then he hit snooze on the alarm, putting a shirt on from his drawer. Oh yeah, Mina said to meet her in the common room for the surprise, he thought. Mina indeed did have a surprise for him, a good one at that. She also had a bad one though. Izuku headed out of his room and took the elevator to the first floor. Bing. The doors opened and he stepped out, rather excited to see what Mina had planned. He didn't get many surprises, so when he did get one he was always excited. Izuku looked around in the common area and saw everyone waiting for him. Surprise! They all shouted in unison. It was a little party for Izuku. They always did these for everyone in the class. Even for Minato, although reluctantly. Happy birthday Midoriya, Class 1A announced. He took out his phone confused and looked at the date. It was indeed Izuku's birthday, July 15th. So it is my birthday today, he said amused. You forgot your own birthday Midoriya. That's not very manly, Kirishima questioned disapprovingly. Well, we've been doing a whole lot of hero work recently, so I didn't really have time for it, Izuku exclaimed. Exactly, that's why we're here to party. Mina shouted, catching everyone's attention. The party was a blast and they had rave music, a birthday cake, and even a dance show. The class switched it up as always for each party, so it was always a unique experience. The evening was filled with activities like beer pong but with juice instead, a dance-off that was choreographed quite well, and last but not least singing happy birthday. Other than that, it was just talking to people and having a good time. Just because Izuku wasn't popular didn't mean 1A didn't want to hang out with him. While everyone was partying to the extremely loud music, Mina began her approach to Izuku. We still need to talk about Nejire, buddy, Mina whispered into his ear. Izuku jumped at the sudden noise and nodded his head awkwardly. She left him alone, not wanting to spoil his night of appreciation. The night went on after eating his green cake made to look like his head. It had its qualities but looked pretty funky. As the time neared 9 p.m. people started to go back to the rooms and call it a night. Even if it was Izuku's birthday, they had school tomorrow. The green-haired boy went back to his room as well, but he wasn't done yet. He grabbed his phone and unlocked it frantically. Izuku was rushing since he couldn't be outside of his room for more than 1 hour. He opened a group chat named Best Buddies by Nejire, of course, and started typing. Izuku, hey guys. I know it's late, but can any of you still hang out? No one responded, and after a minute of staring and his phone dropped onto the floor and laid on his bed. Izuku sighed from not being able to see the most important people in his life on his birthday. Izuku shot up, falling off the bed to grab the phone, still covered by his sheets. He read the message before his eyes. Nejire, I'm pretty sure Mirio and Tamaki went to sleep already, but we can hang if you want. Izuku was incredibly grateful that he would at least get to see one of his best friends today. Especially Nejire. Izuku, do you want to come to my room or should I go to yours? Nejire, come to mine, but be quick. Laughing face. After that, Izuku sprinted out of the doors to 𝗳𝗪𝙢𝐼𝐧𝐿 as if he had a girlfriend that just messaged she was home alone. He activated his quirk to go even faster and made to the doors to Class 3A's dorm in just 1 minute. Pretty impressive considering the distance between the two buildings. Izuku took a moment to catch his breath. He opened the doors to see most of 3A chilling in the common area. Some of them gave him glares, others paid no attention to him. Izuku walked all the way to the elevator in a calm manner, pressing the 5th floor button. He stood there casually, anticipating the opening of the elevator doors. Once they opened, Izuku ran to Nejire's door, knocking lightly. Somehow he wasn't tired of all that running and awaited for Nejire to open the door for him. Coming, she said through the door. Izuku swore he heard the click of a lighter but brushed it off. She opened the door, looking him straight in the eye. Hey, come in, we don't have too long before curfew, Nejire purred. She closed the door behind her. Izuku went and sat down on her bed. He was jerked back by a hug from Nejire. Oh, what's tea this for? Izuku stuttered, hugging her back. It's your birthday today and you didn't even try telling us, she pouted. Sorry, if I'm being honest, I didn't even know till 7 p.m. He chuckled awkwardly. Well, you're here now, so I suppose I can let it slide. How did you know today was my birthday anyway? You told us only once before and I remembered, Nejire exclaimed, hugging him tighter. She finally let go of him and sat down next to Izuku. After finally being able to get a proper look at her, he realized Nejire was wearing a blue t-shirt that complemented her light blue hair and black shorts. She leaned over to her desk and grabbed a cupcake she had graciously prepared for him. Thanks, but you didn't have to make me a cupcake, you know. I know, but I would never disappoint on my best friend's birthday. Izuku felt amazing. He had relaxed a lot today and got time to spend with his best friend crush. He was fine with not growing his friendship with her to relationship level. All Izuku wanted was to hang with his friends. And become the #1 hero, of course. They talked while Izuku ate his cupcake that Nejire made for him. They played some video games for a bit and even watched an action movie. Unaware of the time that is. When Izuku checked his phone, it was 12 a.m. Shoot. It's 12 a.m., he panicked. Oh no. Sorry, she apologized. Don't be, it was my fault I kept you up this long. Well, Nejire started. This is only if you want to, but you could stay here tonight. This sentence made Izuku's brain malfunction. Here. I and why your room isn't that wrong. There's nothing in the rules that says it's not allowed, and as I said, it was only if you wanted to. He thought about it for seconds, still trying to process he might be sleeping in a girl's room tonight. Oh okay then, Izuku stuttered nervously. I'll sleep on the floor. What? No way. She shouted. Then where do I sleep? Izuku asked. You sleep on the bed with me, Nejire said aloud. It sounded better in her head, but when she said it out loud it sounded very wrong. He gulped, clearly red in the face. Sure, Izuku answered. Nejire honestly wasn't expecting that and became very flustered. They got into bed together, both facing the other way. So close. Izuku thought. Their backs were touching and it was one of those comfortable but uncomfortable moments. Suddenly she rolled over and tapped him on the shoulder. Izuku, she whispered. He rolled over to face her. Thank you, she said before starting to drift off. Izuku smiled and closed his eyes as he slowly joined he in the world of slumber. Izuku awoke to practically being strangled. Although he liked it for some reason. So Izuku decided to open his eyes only to see Nejire cuddling with him. Oh. God, he internally screamed. Izuku was more than happy. He was elated that he was snuggling with his crush. Unfortunately, he had to check the time to see if school was starting soon. It was only 7 a.m., so he had time. Izuku dug his head into her neck as they held each other. This was like a dream come true for both of them. Nejire opened her eyes, woken up from Izuku moving. She saw him and started panicking. Izuku, she said in an attempt to get his attention. He moved his head to look up at her and they both blushed. Izuku let go of her instantly, saddening Nejire. Sorry, they both said to each other. Nejire got up and out of her bed. That was one of the best nights of sleep she has had in a while, even though it was fairly short. Izuku followed her actions and also got up from her bed. It's okay, Nejire said blankly. I invited you to sleep with me, so it's no biggie, she whispered while smiling. That smile made Izuku's heart beat 5 times faster than usual. In his eyes it was the kind of smile that shouldn't be so mesmerizing, yet it was. No matter what, that smile always cheered him up. He sat there staring at her, taking in as much of her morning beauty as possible. Stop looking weirdo. I know this may seem a little weird, but I hope this doesn't change anything, she said playfully. Of course not, he replied. Izuku noticed she was about to go to the bathroom. He just looked down, a shade of red indented on his face. Maybe I should go, he murmured while smiling awkwardly. You can stay as long as you need, but be ready to go to school today. Also don't go through my stuff. Nejire spoke that last part seriously and not softly like she usually speaks. Just like that, she went into the bathroom, presumably to brush her teeth and shower. Izuku was dumbfounded by how well she was handling it. He couldn't think about it that long though, since he still had to get ready for school. Izuku looked around the room, remembering what it was like. Then he took in one last breath before dashing out of her room. That whole experience left him very confused and flustered, but the thought that was really clear in his mind was, I just slept with Nejire Hado. Luckily no one else was in the common area in the 3A dorms, so he just left without having to sneak around. Izuku sprinted at full speed to get back to his dorm room. Returning quickly, he opened the door. Still no one. He was on a lucky streak this morning as he wasn't questioned by anyone around. Izuku opened the door to his room without issue and grabbed his school uniform. He wasn't in a rush, but Izuku didn't want to take his sweet time getting ready. Meanwhile, she walked out of her bathroom to see he had left. Izuku's scent, however, did not. He smelled like mint ice cream. Her favorite kind. Nejire had stayed calm during her ordeal with Izuku since she didn't want him to panic. The best part was that nothing would change in their friendship, or that's what he said at least. Nejire was all dressed up and ready to head to school. It was only 7:30 a.m. so she still had half an hour. Like every other day at U. She walked towards the common area to wait for Mirio and Tamaki to show up. Today though she wouldn't have to wait. They were already there. It was 7:35 a.m., no rush, but starting to cut it close. Izuku ran out of 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃 still adjusting his tie with his backpack half on. He didn't like to make his friends wait but today they did. That was their punishment for Izuku sleeping with Nejire. He was glad that his friends waited for him. It gave him a sense of security and safety. Izuku made it to the door of the 3A dorms breathing heavily. "I'm H here," he said panting. They laughed about it and walked to their classes for the day. Talking about anything the group could think of, Izuku and Nejire had this knowing look in their eyes and could barely hold eye contact. "Did I miss something or are you two avoiding each other?" Mirio asked. "No." Both of them shouted at the same time. This sudden outburst made Mirio and Tamaki more suspicious of their actions. "I mean, we aren't avoiding each other," Izuku spoke nervously, looking down. She sighed knowing he wouldn't last much longer and decided to tell them herself. "We kinda, how do I put it, slept with each other," Nejire said, shattering every ounce of confidence she had left. An audible gasp was heard from the two of them. It was out in their air now. Izuku and Nejire didn't like that fact one bit. If news spread about this to the rest of the school, it would for sure be the end of them. "Were you cuddling?" Tamaki asked in a teasing voice. "Oh, I bet they were." Mirio agreed. "Please stop," Izuku managed to mutter. "Okay, we'll just ask Nejire for the answers later," Mirio responded, winking at him. They split up at the same spot as they usually did in the mornings and Izuku went to his classroom. Not many people were around yet, just Kaken, Uraraka, Tsu, Ojiro, Tokoyami and Momo. He was scared. And Izuku should be, as a certain pink girl with horns on her head overheard their conversation while passing them in the hallways. Izuku had his head down at the time and didn't notice. Now Izuku's fate was in Mina's hands. Power. Izuku sat in his seat waiting for class to start, when Mina walked in. With a rather large smirk today, bigger than her usual ones. He didn't seem to notice it. Mina walked in the direction of Izuku. He noticed and began to question what she was doing in his head. "Why is she looking to me?" Izuku thought. Once she stood in front of his desk, she bent to get eye level with him. "Sleeping with seniors already, huh?" Mina whispered so only he could hear. Izuku went wide-eyed and looked incredibly pale. So many thoughts were rushing through his head now. How did she find out? What do I say? Has she told anyone else? How, he stuttered, his hair covering his eyes. "Don't worry about that for now. Worry about how you're gonna keep me from telling everybody," Mina whispered into his ear. "And don't go telling anyone about this or I'll spread it like wildfire," she spoke, continuing to whisper. Izuku could practically feel the devilish smirk she was wearing right now. Mina had gotten very valuable information and she was going to make him work for her. She didn't hate Izuku in any way. This was just what she did when Mina had this kind of information. Then, she walked away innocently like she didn't just threaten him. Izuku was frozen. His day went on normally and he acted normal, but on the inside he was sweating. "Listen up, students," Mr. Izawa called. "You have to pick your work studies today or you're going to be put with the volunteers for it." Some people in the class hadn't picked yet, either because they didn't care or they were still looking. Izuku was one of these people and he already had a lot on his plate right now. After class was over he purposely tried to avoid Mina. Any contact with her right now was asking for punishment. Izuku was paranoid, looking over his shoulder to see if he was being followed or making sharp turns when he saw Mina. Eventually Izuku made his way to the table he always sits at. Because of all the precautions he took to avoid Mina, he ended up late to lunch, almost missing it in fact. There was only 4 people left in the queue for food. Izuku looked at the clock to see that lunch break was over soon. Shoot. He thought. He walked up to the line and asked a question he knew he wasn't going to like the answer to. "Can I have katsudon, please?" Izuku asked politely. Sorry kid, we're all out, Lunch Rush replied. Oh, that's fine, I'll just go without, he said while rubbing the back of his head with a sheepish smile. Now he was paranoid and hungry. Today was pretty bad for him. Izuku showed up to the table and greeted the big three. Hey guys, he said, sitting down. Izuku, where have you been? Lunch is almost over, Nejire scolded. I got caught up in some stuff. All three of them knew something was off. What stuff? Mirio asked suspiciously. Izuku wasn't prepared for them to ask that question. You know, work and T-talk, he said nervously. That was a blatant lie and he knew it. Okay, you're hiding something but we'll drop it since you look so uncomfortable. Also, where's your food? Mirio replied. They didn't have katsudon today, Izuku answered looking down. Oh, you should still eat something, the yellow-haired boy advised. It doesn't matter, I'm not hungry, he lied. Izuku sat there, miserable and uncomfortable while the others ate their food. He glanced over to Mina to see her smirking uncontrollably at him. This girl was going to be the end of him. Hey, where are you guys going for your work studies? Izuku asked, curious about his friends. I'm going to Ryukyu's agency, Nejire replied. I'm heading back to Sir Nitai's agency again, Mirio responded. I'm going with Fat Gum, Tamaki said timidly. I hate to do this but no agency sent me a request and I have to decide where I'm going today or I have to do it with the volunteers, Izuku said. They all thought about it for a minute and told him, sorry, Nitai's agency is a bit of a mess since he passed and Fat Gum can't intern 2 heroes at once, Mirio said looking down in disappointment. That's fine, Izuku lied, it was indeed not fine. What was he gonna do now? He had to go with the volunteers. That thought tortured Izuku. While everyone else was out learning how to be a better hero, he was going to struggle to make any progress at all. This meant Izuku was going to have to work much harder to learn anything. Actually, I think Ryukyu is looking for another intern right now. Maybe you could join me, Nejire exclaimed, giving hope to Izuku. Thank you so much, Nejire. I owe you big time, he said while awkwardly smiling at her. No biggie, she simply returned. The bell rang and they got up. The group exchanged their goodbyes and left for their classrooms. Now that Izuku had an agency to go to, he was over the moon. Until he saw her again. Approaching him in the hallway, Izuku tried to get away but it was too late. Oh no you don't, Mina yelled, grabbing his arm. What do why you wanna, Mina? Izuku stuttered. Remember that little secret of yours? Well, I need a favor, she started. What would that be? He said, afraid to ask. I left my bag in the cafeteria, could you go get it? She asked, knowing he would say yes. Okay, he replied. At least she wasn't going to make it personally hard for him. Izuku fetched her backpack and brought it to her moments before the class started. He sighed, wishing she had never heard what Nejire said earlier. Izuku didn't like being held at Mina's mercy. He told Mr. Aizawa that he was going to be interning at Ryukyu's agency and sat down for his last class of the day. Izuku, knowing that Mina was only going to ask for favors, actually paid attention in class. He didn't fear what she was going to ask him anymore. As long as she kept her end of the bargain, he was happy. The class ended quickly and Izuku got a good amounts of notes for what felt like a long time. He simply had very little energy left at the end of the day. Still, Izuku wanted to hang out with his friends since he couldn't leave them 2 days in a row. Their interactions were limited during school hours, but outside of that time they could do whatever they wanted, almost anything anyway. Izuku walked towards their meeting spot, a lone cherry blossom tree on top of a small hill near the dorms. However, when he arrived, they weren't there. He shrugged it off, thinking they were just later than usual, and sat down against the tree. Izuku waited. And waited and waited. He must have been there for about 2 hours now and they still didn't show. Izuku was a little upset about wasting time, so he did what he needed most. His eyelids snapped shut as he went into the infinite abyss of sleeping. There he was, asleep peacefully. Certain girl was going to ruin that. She ran up to him and tackled him into a hug. Izuku woke up slowly, realizing someone was hugging him. Hey, he said to the mysterious figure. Then pink hair and skin popped up, revealing who she was. Mina Ishido. What are you doing here? Izuku asked her. For another favor, of course. I just needed you to be awake. Sure, what is it? Tell me why you take an interest in Nejire and not someone else. What do 𝗬𝗵𝗃 mean? Izuku stuttered, playing dumb in the process. He was screwed, like super screwed. You know exactly what I mean, Mr. Mina pouted. Izuku felt defeated, like he was stuck. Maybe it was because Mina was practically forcing him against the tree. I don't like her tea that way, Izuku lied. BS and you know it. I will prove that you like her. Mina said, getting tired of his barriers of lies. If you don't tell me the truth right now, I'll tell the class about what you did with her, she threatened. 2. Izuku tried to get out. What was he supposed to say in this situation? Maybe something like, you shouldn't be doing this, Mina. But that was too confrontational. In other words, Izuku didn't really do confrontation unless it was a villain. While she was acting like one, she didn't deserve to be treated like one. Something just snapped in his brain at this moment. He was angry, but didn't take it out on others, even if they deserved it. Izuku's brain went on autopilot while he subconsciously watched the events unfold. Izuku stood up, not looking at her. Where do you think you're going? Mina frowned while grabbing his arm. He shook her grip off and made a run for it. Izuku's emotions had begun to pile up for a while now. His crush on Nejire, Mina blackmailing him, and Izuku feeling like garbage from being paranoid so often. He just sprinted to his dorm. The one place he felt safe in you. Izuku ran through the doors of 𝗳𝗪𝙢𝙢𝐼𝐧 with tears in his eyes, confusing anyone that saw him run past. It was around 9 p.m. now, so not many people were up. He opened the door to the elevator, spamming the button to go to the second floor to his room as fast as possible. Once reaching the second floor, he ran out and into his room and then slammed the door behind him. Looking down at the floor with blurry vision and wet eyes, Izuku let it all out. Izuku cried as he felt guilt for not being able to stop Mina from spreading what they did together, pain from all those times he was alone, including today. He felt disgraceful and disgusted by who he was at this moment. I am so sorry, Nejire, Izuku spat out while pouring tears all over the floor. After he calmed down for a few minutes, he dried his eyes slightly and looked up. Izuku was terrified to see Mirio, Tamaki, and Nejire all standing before him. They all wore shocked expressions from watching him break down right in front of him. What happened, Izuku? The big three asked him. Honestly, Izuku's heart felt like it was about to shrivel up. He didn't have any chances to catch a break. It hurt so much that he couldn't bear to speak. The only noise he made were wheezes from his emotions. Izuku only felt like crying more as he looked at them, dumbfounded and on his knees. They hugged him while tears just streamed continuously down his face. Izuku really didn't feel like explaining this one, yet he had to. Just breathe, okay? Nejire's soothing voice said, calming him. There was still so much pain. Izuku was glad he had friends that were here for him, supported him even. But this time, he felt like being alone again. Wondering if their friendship would have never started if they simply didn't meet each other. He had grown close with each one of them, especially Nejire. A minute or two of hugging later, Izuku gave a signal to let go. He was exhausted, sad and broken. Izuku never let anyone see him like this, but that was impossible when your only safe spot is invaded. I am sorry, Nejire. One of 𝗵𝗃 classmates overheard WES slept tea together and now as she's going to tell everyone, he stammered every word uttered out of his mouth from all the crying. That is a problem, but right now, Izuku, it's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. We're worried about you, Nejire spoke softly, reassuring him. What are you guys doing here anyway? He said with a raspy voice. We were going to surprise you with a little party since we couldn't hang out with you on your birthday, but you never came, Mirio answered. I was waiting for you guys by the tree, like every other day, Izuku replied. This made them feel really guilty for not texting him or something like that. The poor boy was out in the cold for hours, still in his uniform. Do you want us to stay the night? Tamaki asked. I'm alright, but thank you for offering, Izuku murmured. He did want them to stay the night, but that would make him look even weaker than he currently was. Izuku couldn't have that. Tamaki, Nejire and Mirio left Izuku alone for the night since it was almost curfew. Izuku wasted no time and crawled into his bed, falling asleep the second his head hit the pillow. Nejire was quite concerned for the green-haired first year. She had never seen him break down like that. She always thought that he was strong, but even the strongest fall sometimes. Currently Nejire was in the elevator. Mirio and Tamaki had already left on the 3rd floor, so now it was just Nejire. Slowly but surely she was going up. Bing. The doors opened and she stepped out. Nejire was worried herself, not only about Izuku but the classmate that was going to spread what happened. The next day would most likely be labeled as a target. Fortunately, work studies were for the next 2 weeks now after the weekend, which meant she could spend time with Izuku without something bad happening. Nejire walked inside of her room, closing the door behind her softly. She walked over to her bed and laid down on it. She was tired but still awake. I hate it when people treat Izuku like that, she thought. Her feelings were only growing stronger for the young freckled boy, and she wasn't sure how to feel about it. The thought of getting rejected and ruining her friendship with him was a terrifying one. She curled up into her sky blue hair and closed her eyes, falling asleep shortly after. Izuku woke up to a pounding on his door with a massive headache. Coming, he spoke groggily. Izuku opened the door to reveal Nejire standing there super stressed out. "Whoa, what's wrong?" he asked her. "Your meanie of a classmate didn't lie. They told everyone. Now the entire school thinks we're sleeping together," she exclaimed. Nejire wished that was true, so did he. Izuku was mortified. He knew this was going to happen but was hoping Mina was just bluffing. Izuku buffered before saying, "Come in." Nejire sat down on the bed in her pajamas. She didn't want to stress Izuku out because of what happened last night. He sat down next to Nejire shortly after closing the door. Her royal blue iris were like looking into a trance of beauty. "We can't do anything about it right now, Neji," Izuku said, comforting her. "What's with the nickname?" she asked. "I thought it sounded cute." "If you don't mind me calling you Neji," he answered. She liked that name and pink tinted her cheeks lightly. Nejire decided she would use the nickname she had for him. "I like it, Izu," Nejire replied back. "I thought you might," he chuckled in reply. "Perhaps we should just take our minds off of the whole gossip thing. We should just spend the day out with Mirio and Tamaki. That always cheers us up," she exclaimed after some time of thinking. "I'd like that," Izuku responded. "Ooh, I know this really good ice cream place that infuses it into a milkshake. They're so good." "Sure. I'll text Mirio and Tamaki to meet us at the cherry tree," Nejire thought aloud. Big 3 plus Izuku group chat. Nejire, meet at cherry tree, we're going for ice cream. Mirio, be there in 5 minutes. Tamaki, I'll get there when I get there. Perfect. Mirio and Iki can make it, so we should get dressed now, Nejire said with her bubbly and excited attitude. "Okay, you should head back to your dorm then." "Yeah, just one cc," Nejire started. She fished around in Izuku's drawer and pulled out a shirt that was green, matching his highlighted hair. "I'll be taking this," Nejire laughed a little. Oh yes sure," Izuku replied blushing. She gave Izuku a hug, reminding him that he has friends that care for him before dashing out the door and back to her own dorm. Mirio was the first one there, with Tamaki arriving a minute later. However, Izuku and Nejire hadn't turned up yet. Both of them sat there waiting for their friends until they eventually arrived. "Hey guys!" Izuku shouted with Nejire tailing him close behind. "Hi you too," Tamaki said openly. "Sorry to hear about your secret getting out," Mirio said. "It's fine, right now we just want to take our minds off it," Nejire replied. "So, where are we going?" Mirio asked. "Remember that old ice cream milkshake shop we used to go to?" "It's that 1-inch," Nejire answered. "Oh yeah. We stopped going because we went broke from spending so much there all the time," Mirio laughed. "If the big 3 went broke for the stuff, then it had to be good. They left you after checking out with their student IDs and walked for around 15 minutes before arriving at the place. It was small, on the outskirts of the city, and had little to no cell service. How it hadn't got out of business was a mystery, but it still had its fair share of customers. All 4 of them walked into the shop and straight up to the cashier. "What do you guys want?" Izuku asked, pulling out his wallet. "What?" "Izuku, you don't have to pay," Tamaki spoke timidly. I insist, it's the least I could do for you guys since last night, he said looking down awkwardly. Okay, but only if we split it next time, Mirio countered. Deal. Izuku exclaimed. Nejire takes mint choc chip, I prefer cookies and cream, and Tamaki here likes strawberry, Mirio said listing what they liked. Okay, go find a booth, I'll be there in a moment, he replied. They listened and sat in a booth in the corner of the store with a nice view through the window. Mirio and Tamaki sat together with Nejire on the other side, awaiting Izuku to return with the milkshakes. Izuku was leaning against the wall scrolling through his phone when he came across a post from AU. A student. Mina Shido. It had over 6,000 likes and it read, "What's up my high school friends? Today's juicy contents are, the Nejire Hado slept with an underclassman." Since Mina got all the good stuff, almost anyone who liked gossip followed her on social media. Reading this, Izuku felt even more distraught than before. Number 154. The cashier called. That was his number. Izuku walked up to the counter and picked up the milkshakes. Thank you, he replied. Izuku made his way over to the booth the big three were seated at after looking around for a small amount of time. Here you go everyone, he greeted, giving all of them their favorite flavored drink. Izuku sat down next to Nejire, also with choc chip. They chatted for hours on end about being geeky and other random stuff in their lives. For a moment there, Izuku and Nejire forgot all about school and drama. The time was coming for the shop to close after a few hours and they went home. I might go back there sometime, it was really nice, Izuku shared with the group. Okay, but don't go overboard like we did, Mirio chuckled. By the time they got back it was 9:30 p.m. so they called it a night. Soon enough they were all in their rooms drifting off into the world of slumber. The next morning Izuku awoke from a dream where he was holding Nejire in his arms, wishing the moment would last forever. He had been receiving these wonderful images since he actually snuggled with Nejire throughout the night. It was Sunday and news about Izuku and Nejire had spread through the school quicker than usual. Who wouldn't want to be with the idol of the school? She looked really pretty and her curves caught the attention of boys who passed her or were having a conversation with her. That thought sent Izuku into a spiral of negative ones. Why would she date him? There are so many people out there and he wanted one that was far, far out of his league. Izuku got up off his bed and grabbed some basic black shorts and a white t-shirt before heading into his bathroom to brush his teeth and shower. He was groggily moving the brush back and forth on his teeth when he got a ping on his phone. Izuku peeked down to see what his was. From Mirio, his phone screen read. Izuku opened it and read his message. If it was from Togata then it was usually important. Mirio, few words of advice. Do not leave your room unless you want to be bombarded by your class. Turns out Mirio, Tamaki and Nejire came over to greet him when they found a mob of students outside his dorm room. Izuku, why are they here? Mirio, we asked a few people and they said that they're mad that such a nerd, such as yourself, could land someone like Nejire. Most of the people standing outside of Izuku's room were boys who were perverted in some way or another. He listened from the bathroom and could hear mumbling and talking when he went quiet and turned off his toothbrush. Great, he thought. Today he was going to have to face an angry mobster of people that wanted to know things he didn't have the answer to. He entered the shower, attempting to not focus on the people outside of his room. Izuku struggled to do so. He finished his warm shower and put on the clothes aforementioned earlier. The boy took a deep breath in and out before pushing his door open. He had to get through this crowd if he wanted to leave his room, so Izuku tried to walk past them but was immediately grabbed the arm and pinned against the wall. He was bombarded with questions that he didn't know how to ask. Are you guys dating or something? One boy shouted. How the hell did you get Nejire to sleep with you? Another one yelled. Have you guys been doing it? The third boy screamed. That last question made Izuku flustered. Of course he hadn't been doing it. He was scared and didn't know what to say. And no, was all he could mutter out, but this only sent the other boys into a large fit of rage. It didn't matter what answer he gave them because it only drove them madder than they currently were. There was a point where one of the boys loosened his grip on him while shouting and Izuku yanked his arms out from the people pinning him down. He then ran for his life, not stopping to look back. Izuku pulled his phone out while running still and attempted to text the big three. Izuku, I think I'm going to study in the library today, he tried to text and that was what he got out of it. The mob was nowhere in sight and Izuku went into the library at a slower pace. The place was empty, it was a weekend so he wasn't surprised. He scanned the towering books shelves lined with endless amounts of knowledge and information. Izuku sat down at a table in the far back as to not be recognized near the front and began to sharpen his math skills. He wasn't doing exceptional in mathematics, but he certainly wasn't failing the subject. His average grade was 79%. Not comfortable for exams but good enough to pass during the year. With the extra time he had today, he sat down for hours staring at notes and triangles trying to understand what he had to do to solve the equations. Several hours later Izuku was exhausted and struggling to keep his eyes open. He hadn't looked up in such a long time, his mind was about to go insane. With his emerald-colored eyes slowly dissipating, he saw that it was dark outside. He seriously just spent his entire day studying alone. Bored out of his mind, he gave in to his urge to sleep. His body was shaking violently from someone. Izuku opened his eyes to see a appealing sky-blue-haired girl was the cause of his shaking. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, he spoke tiresomely. Get into your hero costume, Izu, we're going to be late for our work studies. Work studies. Izuku remembered. He shot up and quickly got his hero costume from his classroom, putting it on in the male changing rooms. His brain, half asleep still and the other half panicking, he shoved on the gloves and went to go find Nejire, gaining a few looks from students in the process. He ran to the gate where she had texted to meet him after he was ready. Izuku finally saw her when he turned the last corner of the path he was taking. Hey Nejire. Sorry for taking so long, Izuku apologized. You look tired, sleep late? She asked. Yeah, got caught up in some notes, he answered. They signed out using the tablet at the entrance of with their IDs and made their way to the train station. Upon arriving, Izuku looked into Nejire's ocean-like eyes, losing his train of thought in the process. She stared back into his, resisting the urge to kiss him. She had fallen for the boy a while ago but still felt like her feelings were growing exponentially. Why didn't they stop? Why was this boy so interesting to her? She hoped to know the answer to these questions soon enough. They stepped onto the train and sat down next to each other. Thanks for waking me up earlier, I really appreciate it, Izuku said gratefully. No problem, just don't do it again or Ryukyu might not be happy with you. We're lucky that we'll be on time today. He nodded his head in response. Sitting there silently allowed Izuku's brain to start functioning properly for when they arrived at Ryukyu's agency. The conductor announced their stop and Izuku and Nejire got off the train. Izuku had been in the city before but it always looked mesmerizing to him. A quick walk down a few streets and they were there. Standing in front of the well-established building Ryukyu had worked hard for, the two of them walked in, one nervously and the other confident. Ah, welcome back, Hato. I presume this is the kid you were talking about, Ryukyu asked while pointing in the direction of Midoriya. Yep. He's one of the strongest first years I know. Izuku has a lot of potential, Nejire answered. That's good to hear, she started. Since he's new here, I'll put him on patrol duty with you to start off. As time goes on, we'll see if he has value here, Ryukyu spoke, putting Izuku a little on edge. Thank you, Ryukyu, he replied, bowing. Any chance to prove he was worthy was one Izuku had to take. After their conversation, Nejire guided Izuku to the 𝗓𝗍 sheet. This records the hours we work so we get paid accordingly, she explained. Paid? But I'm only an intern, Izuku asked confused. Yeah, but Ryukyu's agency is one of the few that pays their interns, Nejire responded. I don't need to be paid, Nejire. I just want to learn how to be a better hero and help civilians. You're too kind, you know that, Izu. A slight blush crept its way onto his face. Thanks, he stuttered, signing in. Once she had also signed and they left the agency and started wandering the streets looking for any evil deeds going down. Every now and then their hands would brush against each other, forcing a flutter in both of their hearts. So, what do you want to improve on? Nejire asked. Definitely Air Force, he started. I have to use around 25% of my power to have an impact with Air Force, but I can't sustain that level of power yet, so I 𝗧𝗵𝗍𝗍𝗏 at the last second before releasing. Oh, I see, you want to make it part of your arsenal of moves, right? Yes. Then keep using it, practice as much as possible until it's second nature to you. Soon enough you'll be able to use it at any time you want to, she advised. Got it? I will train every day until I master this power and make it my own. Nejire looked at Izuku, his vibrant emerald eyes filled with a unique determination that only a pure heart could 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧. The thought of him becoming one of the greatest heroes one day was not just a thought but possibly would become reality. She loved every part of him. A signal of pain panged its way through Nejire's body. She didn't like it, the feeling of jealousy and doubt. Nejire fought the urge to kiss him right then and there. She couldn't, that's not what a hero would do. He was so focused on becoming the world's greatest hero while she wanted to become one of the top heroes too, except she was too focused on Izuku. Hey, look over there, he shouted while pointing down an alleyway where someone was being mugged by a group of 5 to 6 thugs. Let's put a stop to it. Nejire responded, encouraging a fight. The two of them ran or floated their way over to the person in the unfortunate situation. It was a woman that looked to be in her 20s. Stop. Get away from me. She yelled in fear. The thugs laughed maniacally at her. Oh, do someone need a hero? One of the thugs teased mockingly. Suddenly the man was punched in the face by a green lightning that sent him against the wall of the alleyway. What the hell? Another one of the muggers spoke, scared a hero was around. The 5 remaining looked to their right to see 2 heroes in training ready to put up a fight. All of them activated their quirks. You don't want to fight us. The biggest one of the group said, charging at the young heroes. With a swift dodge from Izuku and Nejire, the mugger ran past the 2 of them, missing his readied fist. A decisive punch in the back knocked him to the floor. Without thinking, the rest of the little gang threw all they had at the 2 of them. Izuku dodged a punch in the form of a wrecking ball before evading another attack from an arrow. Nejire sent her surges of energy towards a few of them. They were slower than her surge and got hit by the yellow force, pushing them onto the floor in pain. With only 3 left to go, Izuku sprinted forwards to another one of them. Jumping slightly off the ground to get head height with the guy, he yelled, "Detroit!" The green-haired boy started. Smas. The man was prepared for his attack though and slowed him down compared to the rest of the world. Izuku was moving at a quarter of the speed he was before because the man was able to touch him. This thug's quirk allowed him to slow down anything he touched for half an hour at a time or when he chooses to release them. The man easily dodged his attack while another hit Izuku in the face. Nejire had just detained another one of the criminals when she saw the state her partner was in. He couldn't fight against them as he wasn't able to move efficiently enough compared to them, and he was still stuck midair, slowly falling to the floor. She ran over and shot her wave motion at them. Before her waves of energy could hit them, she saw a pink cloud-like blade was thrusted through Izuku's heart and appearing through his back. The look on his face was one she could never forget. It was a combination of pain, fear, realization, and despair. "Izuku!" she screamed. The soul-crushing scene on his face caused Nejire to exert all of her energy in the thought of losing him, almost immediately knocking out the 2 of them. She ran over to Izuku's side. He had landed stomach side down while his head was slightly propped upwards. Nejire rolled him over to see what horrible damage might have been there. Pushing with the rest of her already low amount of power, she managed to flip him over. Izuku groaned from the pain and opened his eyes enough to see the world around him, including his upperclassmen. The sign of him being awake was a good one. After she revealed his chest, she looked at the body, confused as to why no visible damage was done. She patted him down for injuries but still found nothing. "Are you okay?" she shouted in concern. "I'm all right," he coughed out, slowly standing up. "We need to get you checked by a doctor after we turn in the criminal meanies," Nejire demanded. They rounded up the 5 of them. The biggest one of them had escaped into the streets. The women being attacked had run away long ago, leaving no trace of where she went. Izuku and Nejire brought them into the closest police station after describing their battle with them. The officer asked to talk to them in an interrogation room to take their statement. While she explained to the cop what had happened, Izuku was in his own world, unaware of what was around him. He was struggling with what he felt. Was he feeling pain? But Izuku didn't know, but he felt something of the sorts. Waves of different feelings continued to wash over the young boy. Not being able to identify it was irritable for him. "Hello, young man," Are you there? What? Izuku replied after waking up from his trance. I was asking if you need medical attention since you got stabbed in the fight, the officer asked. I feel weird. My emotions are all over the place and I don't understand them anymore, Izuku answered. This reply worried both Nejire and the cop. Okay, we'll send you and Miss Hado here to the hospital unit nearby just to make sure no damage was done. Thank you, Izuku stuttered. For some reason he felt fine, despite that stabbing pain feeling so real. I have a hunch that the reason I am this way is because of one of the criminal's quirk. If possible, could you try and figure it out for me? Izuku asked. We'll look into it, kid. The cop replied before a medical unit came in with a stretcher. Nejire walked out of the interrogation room while Izuku was carried out by EMTs. She was worried for the young boy. If he had permanent damage in any form, she would never forgive herself. Izuku was put into the back of the truck with Nejire while she sat on the side bench. The ride was a short one, no longer than a minute or two, but it still felt like an eternity. Izuku looked at the girl next to him. Was it just him, or was she even more appealing than before? To Izuku, Nejire was perfect in every way. She had a kind soul and always wanted to help others. He didn't care for her body in SXL way, but she did have a nice figure. Nejire always helps him and it pains Izuku when he can't help her or he worries her. Being carried out by the EMTs again, he was in a new location. This time entering the doors of a hospital instead of leaving the doors of the police station. He was taken off of the stretcher and put onto a movable hospital bed. Izuku was wheeled into a room and Nejire was taken to get a bandage or two for her scratches. She prayed that he was going to come out fine. A few hours of tests and waiting later, Nejire had been sitting in the waiting room for an hour now, resisting the urge to sleep and recharge her energy. She still had no clue how Izuku was doing. The sky blue-haired girl had asked the nurse at the front desk about 1,000 times when she was going to see him. She was about to do so again when a doctor called her into his room. This finally quenched her thirst to know when she could see him. The doctor opened the door and she could see a very lively and awake Izuku. The green-hair boy waved at her, greeting Nejire in a more formal way. She ran over to his bedside. She leaned onto him with all of her force, embracing him tightly. Thank God you're safe, her muffled voice sounded into him. Sorry for keeping you worried for so long. I've yet to hear the test results, so I'm still waiting on those, Izuku reassured her. She reluctantly released her grip on him, but Izuku didn't. He didn't want her to let go. The simple thought of it felt impossible. She just went along with it and gripped his hero costume once again. After a minute of cuddling, the doctor awkwardly spoke. So, we brought you here to let you hear the results too, the doctor announced. This prompted him to let go, but again, he felt he couldn't. Izuku finally realized what he was doing and let go instantly. Sorry, Nejire, I don't know what came over me, he responded. Well, I do, so you may want to listen up. I have good news and bad news, the doctor said calmly. The supposed knife you were stabbed with was a quirk. It wasn't a real knife, which is the good part. We were stumped on what the quirk could be after all the physical results turned up negative. After the police station contacted us about the person's quirk, we were finally able to come up with a diagnosis, the man explained. The criminal's quirk is known as 𝗧𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗧𝗏, as they call it, causes the person to have certain problems depending on where he hit them. If it was your brain, then you'd be experiencing memory loss or even be in a coma. If it was your arm or leg, the limb would just shut down and stop working for a few days. However, the heart is more complicated. For quirks, the heart is known for its emotions that evoke from it. Hence the name. It causes certain emotions to arise. Unfortunately, the officer told us it could be any of them, the doctor explained. They were both scared now as they didn't know how long this would last. We're slightly unsure when it will wear off, but it will start to take effect from tomorrow. Make sure he is being supervised by a guardian at all times, preferably the same one, so you know what is happening. It should dissipate after a few days to a week or possibly 2. You will be discharged today, but please look out for signs of depression, lashing out at people, being overjoyed all the time, being antisocial, extreme levels of attraction and lust, or acting severely out of character. We can't fix these symptoms, but we recommend you keep an eye out for them. This will help pinpoint what emotion the quirk selects. The quirk works as a spinning wheel, as we've been told. Right now he can't experience a certain emotion properly because the quirk takes time to select an emotion to severely amplify, he finished. That was a lot to take in. Nejire was overjoyed that it wasn't permanent, and Izuku just shrugged it off because he couldn't feel proper emotions. Just get a lot of rest and you'll get better, the doctor added. The man let them leave the hospital with Izuku in Nejire's care. Returning to Ryukyu's agency just as their shift ended, Nejire explained what had happened to him. Can he still do the work study? Ryukyu asked. He should be fine to do the work study, but if he generates an emotion of anger, then it would be best to sideline him, Nejire answered. Oh, Izuku added to their conversation. We'll be sure to give him quirk training if that happens, Ryukyu reassured. Izuku perked up at this, but only slightly. Nejire entered with Midoriya shortly behind her. They still had to warn the principal about what happened today. Walking through the halls of towards Nizu's office, Izuku asked a question. Am I annoying to you, Mirio and Tamaki? You know, considering I'm a newbie first year and you guys are awesome third years. The initial question shocked her, but she recomposed herself quickly. What? No way. You're totally cool and fun to hang out with. She reassured him. That's good, Izuku replied, seeming convinced. She knocked on the door to the principal's office and walked in. Midoriya and Ado, what brings you two here? The mouse-looking principal asked. Izuku here got hit by a quirk today, and now one of his emotions are going to be playing up. The doctor recommended that a guardian should be applied to him for supervision purposes, she answered. Very well then, Ado, you shall be his guardian. For now go get some rest since it's getting late and the work studies haven't come close to finishing yet, Nizu added. Following his advice, Nejire brought Izuku back to his dorms safely after their whole ordeal. Good night, Izu, she said cutely before leaving him to his room. Sweet dreams, Neji, he replied. She shut the door to his room after that, and Izuku heard her stifle a giggle from the hallway. The next morning, Izuku woke up to the sound of his blaring alarm. He shut it off like every other morning and stood up from his comfy bed. His eyes were half closed and he got ready for his work study. He didn't train on days he had work studies in order to learn as much as possible from it. Izuku grabbed some spare clothes before heading for the bathroom. He squeezed the tube of toothpaste, allowing a little bit to dribble onto his electric toothbrush. Slowly he moved the brush back and forth, removing any plaque on his teeth. Then Izuku remembered what the doctor had said about that evoke quirk. He certainly didn't feel different. In fact, Izuku felt like he could control his emotions again. It was almost like the quirk didn't work on him. He felt empowered and steadily woke up from his drowsiness. Izuku's shower was semi-warm and semi-cold to keep him relaxed but not make him want to fall asleep again. He exited his room noticing a massive mob wasn't waiting for him today. Maybe they moved on. But that was relatively quickly, he thought. The real reason was because the school had caught wind of what happened to him during his work study and decided not to mess with a first year who had been injured somehow. They most likely got this information from Mina's social media. Izuku walked into the elevator and pushed the button for the first floor. He was going to his classroom to retrieve his hero costume for the work study. Nejire told him to meet her at the gate of to go to the work studies together. Not many of his classmates were in the common room. They were either waiting for a partner or just passing the time until they had to go. Izuku walked past them without hesitation. He was feeling weirdly powerful and confident. The distance between his dorm and the school was fairly short, so he made it to classroom 1A in good time. Grabbing the suitcase in the wall, he began the short walk to the gate of the school. The young student noticed that he was a little too excited to do things. Izuku picked up his pace in order to meet his upperclassmen quicker than usual. He was compelled by the feeling of wanting to see her. Walking out of the halls of he found himself not far from the gate. The green-haired boy was nervous. That was strange. It wasn't like he hadn't met her like this a few times before. What was different? He tilted his head down in thought, subconsciously making his way towards the exit of the prestigious academy. Izuku was muttering about some training he could do so he could improve his maximum output when he bumped into something and fell backwards. Or someone. Izuku looked up and his heart left his body. It had ascended to heaven its way to heaven. "Izu," she complained. "You gotta watch where you're going," she laughed jokingly. Previously seeing her sent a small flutter through his heart, but this charted on a completely different scale. It was as if his emotions were amplified by 1000x. Izuku didn't understand how to speak words for a brief moment before replying, Sorry Niji." He was looking into her deep royal blue iris that reflected his image. The problem was he couldn't stop. She was so appealing. Izuku had the strongest urge to passionately make out with her on the spot. He got up and started walking forward towards her without breaking eye contact and leaned down. Before anything that could risk his friendship with Nejire happened, he stopped himself. That was close, Izuku thought. Instead of letting go of all control, Izuku restrained this newfound feeling inside of him. That was almost impossible for him and felt like exploding was a possible chance at any second. He extended his hand outwards with a small but genuine smile. She loved that smile. She gladly accepted his hand while standing up next to him. "Have you ever kissed someone?" he asked out of the blue. "And not yet," Nejire responded nervously. Izuku liked that thought but stopped himself once again. They walked together towards the train station after signing out with their IDs while their hands brushed together every so often. He hated not being able to subside this overwhelming passion in his chest. That passion was for Nejire Hato and he knew it. Without thinking, his heart told him to take her hand and he followed the instructions unwillingly. Although he didn't want to do so, his hand did the moving anyway. After intertwining his fingers with hers, he had no regrets. An immediate and extremely noticeable blush appeared on the teens' faces. Nejire's hand was soft and comforting, it was warm and made him want to stay like that forever. "Iaizu," she uttered quietly. Midoriya only smiled in response and this squeezed her heart. She had wanted to do this since the day she had met him and he finally made the move before she could. Her heart was sending so many different signals to her brain she couldn't process them all at once. Nejire and Izuku continued to enjoy each other's hands and arrived at the train station. Luckily their train showed up a few minutes early so they didn't have to wait in the cold. The weather was cloudy and not a single bit of the sun shined through them. Sitting next to each other on the train, Nejire made another move. She put her head onto his shoulder and he out his head onto hers. Nejire was looking out for signs of different amplified emotions when it hit her. This was the amplified emotion. A scary emotion if let out of control. Fortunately, she knew Midoriya was too innocent to act on such lewd thoughts. She felt a massive wave of guilt wash over her. Nejire felt like she was taking advantage of his emotions. Izuku was acting out of pure longing here, meaning he wanted to do all of this but would refrain from doing so. When this quirk hit him, he got the confidence booster he required to act on these desires. She didn't know that, however, so they continued their jumbled mess of cute times together. When the train arrived at the city, they let go of each completely and stepped off the train into the harsh weather. Izuku and Nejire made their way over to Ryukyu's agency while beginning to talk about stuff they could do at the weekend with Mirio and Tamaki. They treasured their moments together. Walking through the door, they signed in and changed into their hero costumes in the bathroom. They were assigned private lockers to put their stuff into. So after putting their change of clothes into the lockers, Izuku and Nejire walked out onto patrol in their hero costumes. Hero patrol. A good way to help spot criminal activity and wrongdoings. Izuku loved patrolling. Even if he didn't get to go into combat. Knowing that he was there and ready to help people was enough for him. Today, however, was not the case. He was staring in the direction of a light blue-haired, third-year girl. No matter how hard he tried, his brain told him not to look away. Nejire caught notice of this. "Like what you see, huh?" she teased Ted. "Definitely," Izuku replied without thinking. She started to blush and look away as a result of what he said. Nejire did not expect him to say that. He didn't even get flustered like he usually does. They just walked, side by side, keeping an eye out for criminal activity. In reality, both of them were only paying attention to each other. Many moments of silence later, Nejire decided to break the tension. "How are things with your classmates after the whole sleeping ordeal?" she questioned. Izuku stopped staring like he was before and paid attention to what she was saying. "Things are mostly the same. They haven't spoke to me since, but it mostly always like that. In other words, I don't think much has changed, he replied. Then an idea popped into his head like a light bulb switching on. Izuku didn't want to ask this question, but with the quirk amplifying his emotions, he simply couldn't stop himself. Hey Nejire, would you be by any chance wanna go out with me? She stopped to let what he just said sink in. He just asked her out. The answer was obvious, but she really wanted it to go smoothly. Really? I mean sure, I would love to go on a date with you, Nejire answered. Both of them continued their walk around the city. This left the two of them to be extremely excited for their upcoming outing. Great. How about a cafe not too far from you? Today at 6, after the work studies. I know it's cliché, but it's still a nice place, Izuku asked. Anywhere I go with you is perfect. Izuku turned to look the other direction, a red color imprinting itself on his face while he tried to find something else to focus on. They calmed down after some time and kept on their stroll. Izuku's mind was completely set on one thing. Nejire. The blue hair, the royal blue eyes, and even her hero costume fit her so well. His heart rate was still high as ever. Being near her triggered this feeling in his chest that was beginning to overwhelm Izuku. A glint in his eyes spoke what he felt for her. He had been acting happier ever since Nejire entered his life, but this was overkill. Quite literally, it felt like it was going to kill him. Throughout their patrol, Izuku and Nejire stopped 3 crimes. 2 villain attacks that were stopped relatively quickly and a theft. Nothing incredibly interesting, but the action wasn't what they desired. It was each other, and more so than ever before. They signed out after greeting Ryukyu and giving her a report on what had happened during that day. Izuku initiated a hand-holding session on their way back to the campus, and Nejire gladly accepted. This was relaxing for the two of them. Being heroes in training was quite stressful, but knowing they had each other, Izuku and Nejire felt like they could do anything. Using their IDs, they logged in and were allowed entry on the campus. That feeling of comfort, safety in fact, was appearing again. Her hand warming his and his warming hers. Nejire's touch was soft. So soft that it felt like you were touching heaven. The two of them talked about hero stuff until they reached the 3A dorms. Izuku had to force himself to let go of her hand. Bye Neji, I'll see you later tonight, K. He asked to reassure himself this was real. For sure, she replied, reconfirming the date. Izuku waved her off while she walked back into the dorms. He smiled while looking at the floor intently. I'm so lucky, Izuku thought. He was finally going on a date with Nejire Hado, the girl he had been crushing on since the day Izuku met her. Walking back slowly, he recollected the day's events. Who knew that the #1 school model would go for a nerdy first year like him? Izuku almost slammed into the doors of Heights Alliance Class 1A thinking about that. Opening the door, he found a majority of the class sitting around doing their own thing. It was 5 p.m., so a few were preparing dinner, others playing video games, and some just catching up on some studies left over. Hey Izuku, could you help with dinner? I don't know how to make chicken soup, Momo asked. Sorry, I can't tonight. On any other occasion I would, but I have a date I wouldn't want to miss, Izuku responded. A date? She questioned. Yep, he replied with an ecstatic attitude. All eyes were on him when the class heard he was going on a date. What? How do you get a date before me? Kaminari complained. I bet it's that blue-haired chick he's always hanging around, Siro added. Is it? Mina yelled. He just stood there silently before speed walking his way out of the awkward situation. After a short elevator ride, Izuku entered his room and locked his door behind him. What should I wear? Was what went through his head. Izuku went with some more casual clothing since it was only a cafe and not a super classy restaurant. A green shirt that complemented his hair and some light gray, almost white, shorts with his signature red sneakers. In his opinion, the best part of the fit was the sneakers. He sat down on his bed contemplating what he would do to pass the time. Nejire was practically jumping around her room in excitement. After all, she was going on a date with Izuku Midoriya, a nerdy, stuttery and extroverted first year. What looks good with a light blue shirt? She muttered aloud. Throwing clothes all over her room, she found the perfect piece of clothing to match her shirt. Black shorts that stopped at her thighs and made her appearance stand out, picking up her other clothes from the floor after searching. Nejire grabbed a small purse with some cash to split the bill. She found herself leaving at 5:45 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. because of how elated she was. Closing the door behind her, she began the journey from her dorm to his. Each step she took only increased Nejire's anticipation, with a smile growing ever so slightly as she neared 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗂. About halfway there she saw a figure in the distance coming towards her. Nejire squinted her eyes only to realize Izuku was coming her way already. "Izu!" she shouted. Running up to him, Nejire hugged Izuku. This action left him as a blushing mess but hugged back regardless. She was the first to break off after a few seconds. It may have not been long, but Izuku thoroughly enjoyed it. "I'm surprised to see you out here so early, but you still look cute as always," she spoke. "Well, IW was a little too excited to wait, and I certainly didn't want to keep you waiting," he replied, flustered by her comment. She giggled in response and grabbed his right hand. "So, where are we heading?" Nejire asked. "There's a cafe called 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and I've wanted to bring you there for a while now," Izuku said while rubbing the back of his neck with his free hand. They started walking towards the gate of you, welcoming the warmth the other had to give. Both of them were a little weird with interacting at first, since going on a date with your best friend isn't exactly what only friends do. Signing out of you. Using their identifications once again, Nejire and Izuku began to geek out about heroes and what their quirks would do in certain situations. "I think MT Lady would easily win a fight against 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄," Nejire argued. "Maybe, but 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 would be able to make tons of copies of himself to distract her," Izuku responded. They continued to dispute who would win what battles until they arrived at the small cafe. Nejire's eyes lit up upon seeing the mood of the place. It was the perfect place for a date. The candle-lit environment, the seating, the tables that were made of marble, and even the menu looked romantic. "Whoa," Nejire announced, astonished by the place's beauty. Izuku's heart was pounding at least 50 times faster than it should. It took everything in him to not press his lips against hers in the comforting environment. "This evoke quirk," he thought. "Good evening, sir. How may I assist you today?" a butler asked, approaching them. "Hi, can we get a booth in the corner?" Izuku answered in return. "You certainly can." The man gestured for them to follow him to the back of the restaurant, where a booth with a window was placed. It was perfect, especially because the location wasn't extremely active right now and only housed a few other customers. Nejire was the first to sit down, with Izuku taking the other side, separating their hand-holding session. Izuku picked up a menu and began to skim through his options. He already knew what he was looking for, katsudon. Nejire had her mind on some hot chocolate with a bowl of rice that included prawns within. The man returned shortly after to collect their menus and ask what they wanted. "What will be had for the special evening between such a young couple?" he asked. The thought of being a couple was a nice one, but very embarrassing at the same time. Both Nejire's and Izuku's faces went red all over. Katsudon for me, please," Izuku said while shoving the menu in his face to prevent them from seeing how flustered he was. "And for you?" the butler asked, looking at Nejire. "I'll take a hot sea chocolate and shrimp bowl, please," Nejire replied. The man took away their menus, Izuku's cover, and went to go process their order. Feeling nervous, Izuku decided to break the ice. "How are you holding up with schoolwork?" he asked nonchalantly. "Nothing special, but I'm still acing my tests," she responded in her bubbly persona. Just like that, a conversation was struck up between the two, and time passes relatively quickly for them. "Katsudon for the man and shrimp bowl for the women," said the butler, appearing out of seemingly nowhere. "Oh, thank you," Izuku replied, snapping out of his deep talk with Nejire. The man left, but no before smiling sinisterly. The blossoming relationship between the two of them was quite clear to those around them. Picking away at their food, they both made eye contact. The emotions of curiosity, lust, and attraction all rushed back to Izuku as it happened. He quickly looked back down at his food before Izuku did something he would regret. Half an hour of chatting the time away later, the two of them were kicked out politely because it was closing time for the cafe. Both of them were saddened but laughed about it while beginning their walk back to you. "This was nice. I would love to do it again sometime." Nejire spoke out of the blue. Definitely. I wouldn't miss it for the end of the world, Izuku replied. Red started to replace their usual skin color on their faces before starting to talk about anything they could think of. It was coming into sight and Izuku and Nejire both knew what that meant. Their date was coming to an end. Their wonderful night was about to come to end. Right before the gate, Izuku started to change the subject to something he really wanted to do. Hey Neji, I really enjoy the time we spend together. You're the reason I'm so happy in life right now. The truth is Neji, I love you, Izuku confessed. The statement left her in shock. He loved her. That was quite quick to exchange the L word, but she felt the same way. I love you too, Izu, Nejire replied. Izuku's eyes shot wide. He didn't expect her to feel the same way that he did. Since they were going on a date, he assumed Nejire might have felt something, but it was more than he could ever ask for. While thinking about how lucky he was to have the Nejire Hato love him back, she smacked her lips against his. He was surprised at first, however Izuku soon melted into the kiss, closing his eyes to replicate hers. The moment was magical, Nejire's soft lips pressing onto his while Izuku's rough, yet somehow smooth lips pressed back into hers. The kiss only lasted a few seconds before they parted, but Izuku was already addicted to it. There was nothing else in the world he would rather do than spend time with Nejire. Don't give me those goofy eyes, she giggled out. Sorry, hee, Izuku chuckled back. This moment was perfect. Nothing could have gone wrong, so a couple of lovebirds decided they could stay up past curfew. Mr. Izawa spoke threateningly. Sorry, Mr. Izawa. It won't happen again. Midoriya responded, bowing to apologize. You're lucky I'm too tired to deal with this tonight, he said while pinching the bridge of his nose. Just go back to your respective dorms, I need to get some shut-eye. Yes, sensei. Nejire replied sternly. If Izuku could describe last night in one word, he would definitely say, magical. It seems cliché, but in reality it was the truth. No one had ever made him feel this way. It didn't matter if what he felt was increased by a quirk, Izuku knew what he felt was real. He woke up like any other morning, a bright winter's day with a giant smile on his face and a super annoying alarm. Waking up was like a blessing to him. Bathing in the morning sunshine that was coming from his window door that allowed him to walk onto his balcony. Izuku forced himself off of his bed and turned off his alarm. While he was grateful to have an alarm, it sure was an annoying one. Izuku did his usual morning routine of brushing his teeth and showering with a workout mixed in. Training was great for him. Izuku was steadily increasing his power in the gym using some weights, but unbeknownst to him, a tall figure was approaching him. Hey Izuku. Long time no see, Mirio teased. His voice startled Izuku while he was working out, which caused him to accidentally drop the weights, luckily not breaking them. Whoops, was all he could say. The cowlick blonde laughed at him while Izuku picked up the weights that were only slightly damaged. You could only tell if you looked very closely at it. You sure know how to sneak up on a guy, Izuku chuckled. I sure do. So how come you haven't been to the gym so much recently? I didn't have time for training the last few days, but today I feel better than ever. That explains it. I bet you feel great today after your date with Nejire. Mirio concluded. What? How did you find out so quickly? Nejire came bursting into the dorms telling Tamaki and I all about it. Izuku couldn't help but smile. She always knew how to cheer someone up with her smile alone. Well, while you're here, wanna train together like always? Mirio asked. For sure. It was 6 in the morning and these two never liked to miss a day of training. Pushing each other to their limits, time passed like a cork had skipped it. Izuku and Mirio were panting from their extreme workout regimen but continued to walk back to their dorms to get ready for the work studies. Izuku quickly changed his clothes from sweaty tank top to clean hero suit. The school regularly washed their suits so they didn't have to. However, they still had to wash their own clothing. Nejire was silently waiting for her favorite green-haired first year to show up. Since last night she had been even more bubbly than usual. Seeing a faint figure in the distance in a green costume, she already knew it was Izuku. Instead of running to him like Nejire would usually do, she contained her excitement for when he arrived. Izuku, however, started running over to her the second she was visible. Being apart from her was painful for him, even more now since that evoke quirk kicked in. "Hey Izu!" Nejire yelled in excitement to see her boyfriend. "Hi Neji," Izuku replied, slightly panting and slowing down from the run he just performed. His breathing was stopped as she smacked her lips against his. Izuku needed air, but pulling away would feel like it would hurt more, so he just endured it, melting into it. Enjoying the few seconds they kissed, she pulled away to let them breathe. Izuku was a little flustered but was slowly getting used to the fact they would be displaying affection to each other like that more often. "Come on. We should be a bit earlier because you decided not to be a sleepyhead today," she teased. Both of them went on their usual route from the school after leaving with their IDs. The ID card was like a key. If you forgot or lost it, then you wouldn't be getting back in. They took the train, per usual, and cuddled the entire way. Much to their dissatisfaction, the train arrived and they released each other. This action panged a signal of pain throughout his entire body. They were heading over to agency, making small talk along the way. "Hey Hado, hey recruit," Ryukyu greeted. Izuku was desperate to get rid of that recruit name. Ryukyu already knew what he could do since the Overhaul raid, but he was new here, meaning he had to get used to it for now. Nejire and Izuku signed in and walked out and onto patrol. This time Izuku was actually paying attention to his surroundings. Mostly anyway. Many hours of hero work later, they had kicked criminal and were heading back to the agency when Izuku was given an idea. Not by Nejire or himself though, but by the quirk that was possessing him. They weren't allowed to display affection to each other while on patrol, which irritated Izuku, but he couldn't do anything about it. Also, being the nice guy he is, Izuku would never speak up. So before they entered Ryukyu's agency, Izuku muttered something to her. "Neji, turn right," he softly whispered into her ear. She felt butterflies in her stomach as Nejire could feel his warm breath against her ear. The only thing that confused her was that they were turning into an alleyway. Nejire did as he said and turned into the dark place, walking a short distance before being pinned to the wall by Izuku. He couldn't hold back anymore. This excess flowing lust couldn't be contained any longer. It was like something in him burst. "I love you so much, Neji," Izuku whispered in a stuck tone. He began to aggressively kiss her, making this their first makeout session. In an abandoned alleyway, despite his poor choices, she kissed back, putting all of her emotion into it. Izuku's feelings were like a cup now. Doing this drained the cup, almost as if drinking it. But at the same time this made him want more to drink. The split seconds their mouths parted was for air, and it always left a trail or two of saliva. 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Nejire attempted to speak during their session. Izuku finally stopped relishing the moment and broke away. "Yeah, that's probably for the best," Izuku responded, complying much to his displeasure. "I enjoyed that. We definitely have to do it again sometime," she whispered into his ear. Leaving the alleyway, the two quickly went back to the agency to sign out. Their costumes were messy and unclean, but the reason as to why would be kept a secret for now. Hero Patrol was the same every day for the next week and a half. Some days, unlike others, were quiet, which gave Izuku and Nejire a chance to make out more in a suspicious-looking alleyway that most people tend to avoid. This cup, that Izuku imagined his feelings as, was not only overflowing, but it was catastrophically leaking its fluids. Almost as if it had holes poked into it. This fluid was like his admiration and love for Nejire, however it also housed lust within it. Nejire felt sometimes like she was taking advantage of him, but he assured her that he was okay with it. Unfortunately for them, they didn't get the chance to show their passion for one another back at school as much because they were spending all their time with Mirio and Tamaki again. This meant only light kisses and hugs, but the couple felt like they were in a bliss-like state while doing something simple like that. This went on without anyone finding out about it for the entirety of the work studies. Did they feel like bad heroes? Did they regret their actions? Absolutely not. Since Midoriya is still focused on being the #1 hero, he held this cup of his until the near end of their patrols until he finally allowed it to spill. Nejire loved this side of her too. Even if it was only on patrols, she looked forward to her work studies even more. Others at the Ryukyu agency noticed she was a tad more bouncy with her personality than usually, but had zero clue as to why. Nejire was elated to know that Izuku was hers and hers alone, but that didn't stop guys on the street from staring at her figure. It always made her feel awkward, and when he noticed this, Izuku would always stand in front of her. Just one more thing to make her love him even more than she already does. Today was the last day of the work studies, and the couple wanted to get one last good amount of alone time before going back to you. They did their usual thing of going into an alley and started to get DMNT with each other. Before long they were already making out, both of them pouring their feelings into it more. Izuku was struggling with this feeling in his chest. The doctor had told him that it would wear off after a week or two, but he wasn't feeling any different. He wasn't sure how long it would be before he started to cling to her side at every opportunity. Izuku was certain it would dissipate after a few more days, right? Each passing second the two of them only increased the amount of passion they put into their kiss. Somehow, no one had ever seen the two doing this. Granted, it was at the back of a shady alley, but still. Their little activity made them get too caught up in the moment as Izuku started to grope her curves. She let out light moans of pleasure. The vibration from Nejire's mouth snapped him out of what he was doing and stumbled backwards away from her. Sorry, Niji. This evoke quirk is making me do things I shouldn't even be considering, Izuku apologized. It's fine, don't worry about it. We just got caught up in the moment is all, K. Nejire replied, blushing slightly. Oh okay, he stuttered back nervously, even more flustered than her. The thought of him doing lewd things like this with her was a terrifying one in all honesty. Izuku didn't think he was ready for that kind of relationship yet, especially because they only started dating a couple of weeks ago. We should probably head back on patrol to clear our minds, Izuku suggested. Good idea, she responded. Appearing from the alleyway, the two looked unclean and distraught. Continuing their actual work and looking around for any suspicious activity, the duo spotted some places that would be nice for a date. The last few days of the work studies have been plain. No villains or criminals were around since all the students of you have been fighting them off during this time. So, as a result, the days for Izuku and Nejire were just sightseeing and making out. It was beginning to get late, it was slightly cloudy and the sun was on the horizon, making the sky have a bright orange appearance. This atmosphere and setting gave Nejire an idea. Hey, I just got a really good idea, she stated, bouncing up and down. What is it? He responded. After we sign out of work, we should go to this place I know that's on top of a hill. It will give us a great view of the sunset, Nejire exclaimed. Sure. That sounds really nice, Izuku replied. While continuing their walk to the agency, they saw a small child that was seemingly lost. Hi there, little fella, are you lost? Midoriya asked. I don't know where my sniff parents are, the child said. Hey, it's okay. We'll help you find your parents, no sweat, Izuku said confidently. He picked the child up, who seemed to be about 3 years old and male. Izuku then put him on his shoulders to comfort and cheer up the kid. Nejire changed course for them and simply turned left to the police station. Ryukyu's agency was just up ahead and the police station was the one that could find his parents. After stating what had happened to the poor thing to the police, the two of them waved goodbye. Before they could leave, however, the child thanked them. Feeling happy with themselves for helping a child, they soon returned back to the agency. Walking into the doors for the last time was a saddening thought for the both of them. They grabbed a pen and signed out. Ryukyu was notified of their return and walked out to greet them. Well done, you two. I'm glad to say you're no longer a beginner rookie. Anyway, I expect both of you to return when you have work studies again. Here are your paychecks and I'll see you guys later. Ryukyu spoke. They walked out of the building. Izuku was feeling guilty about the money he was holding in his hands. He opened it up to find 83,000 yen, $1,000. Izuku went wide-eyed at the amount he had received. Niji, I think they made a mistake. This is way too much money, he said humbly. Really? How much did they give you, Izu? Nejire replied. 83,300 yen, Izuku shared. That's that normal amount for interns. I made 200,000 yen, $2. 5Ks, seriously? What am I supposed to do with all this? Save it. That's what I've been doing anyway. Okay then, he responded, putting the money in his pocket. Follow me before it gets too late. Nejire said excitedly. She grabbed his hand and pulled him into a taxi after calling one. "Also, could you park please?" she told the driver. Nejire could easily just fly them there, but that would feel like cheating. A few minutes later they were dropped off and Izuku used his newly gained money to pay for it. "I can pay Izu, I'm the one who's taking us here." "No way, a gentleman always pays," he replied softly. That sentence left her gushing in awe of how kind he was. Seeing that made her fall for him all over again. "Come on," Nejire said while grabbing his hand again. She dragged him up a hill nearby, and by the time they reached the top the sun had almost set. "Perfect. We should be able to see the sunset from up here," she announced. Izuku was the first to sit down with his legs out in front. Nejire joined him on his left. They put both their arms around each other and stared at the sunset. All you could see was a tiny slimmer of the sun, meaning it was perfectly okay to look at. Several seconds went by of this blissful moment before Nejire pulled him in for a kiss. Immediately the feeling in Izuku's chest arose, causing him to lust for more. It wasn't a make-out session like all the other times. This one was more relaxed, more compassionate than the other ones. In the background of their kiss the sun descended, no longer visible to them, only the light it emitted. The kiss lasted a solid 30 seconds before it ended. "What did I do to ever deserve you, Neji?" Izuku asked. "That's weird, I've been thinking the same thing," she answered, still half drunk from the compassionate kiss they just shared. Both of them chuckled about it and Izuku pulled out his phone. "Oh shoot, we gotta get back, Neji, school closes soon," he panicked. "Ah, just when the moment was getting good," she countered. Although disappointed from their time together, she picked him up and began to fly back to the school. Within mere seconds they reached the gate's entrance. Pressing some buttons and swiping their IDs the gate opened and they walked in. Snapping shut behind them afterwards the duo decided to hang out with their other two best friends for the night.